Sorry I'm a little minute late. For some reason it wouldn't let me go live on my tablet, so I've had to do it on my phone. So hello, I'm Susie from It's a Dog's Life, and this will be my first big presentation about using enrichment plans as working tools in training and behaviour work. So I suppose it'd be really best if I start with what does enrichment mean at It's a Dog's Life? Well, I'll clarify it. It's, for me, as really simple as improving or enhancing the quality or value of the environment. So making it that simple, I think of the environment as the space in which we inhabit, or the internal environment, which is us and the chemicals that make us and the diet that makes us, and how to make that as high a quality a space to inhabit as possible. I think it requires us to nurture and foster growth in ourselves and in others, especially our dogs. And at this centre, that's what we try and aim to provide. I don't believe enrichment has to be an external part of our dogs or our routines. There is absolutely amazing groups on Facebook that do support people to engage in so many activities with their dogs. And I also do this, but I like to think of it as a general improvement in quality of life experiences, rather than just making the enrichment activity an event in its own right. So for me, it's really important to make sure that when we're looking to work with a dog and their family, that we check what the dog's general day-to-day life is like. So a big part of that for me is where we emphasise the importance on health checks when we undertake any work with a dog and their family. So if we're having a dog that comes into the centre to use it for enrichment purposes, we'd still want a health check even if we're not looking to do any kind of behaviour or training work. So that's just for me to make sure that the internal environment is already enriched, or if there's something we need to do to enrich that environment. I'm not going to try and teach dog trainer grannies how to suck eggs. I'm not trying to rewrite the thing that's already written, but I do think we sometimes overlook that can be an enrichment in its own right. Many enrichment activities focus on contra-freeloading and species-specific sort of food-seeking systems, and I am interested in self-selection and canine choice-led emotional enrichment. So for us, we believe that enriching the inner environment requires us to understand... Oops, I've gone past my notes, sorry. I can't seem to get it to come up here as a presentation for you, which is what I originally tried to do, but because it won't let me for some reason log in as a live on that, and I'm doing it on my phone, I'm having to just read it to you. So I am sorry about that. So yeah, enriching the environment internally requires us to understand if there's anything going on medically. And when I say considering diet, I don't want to see people, and I certainly won't do it myself, acting as a fake nutritionist, because we're not. But I do think we should understand how food impacts us and impacts our dogs. Sorry, the sun was shining in my eyes. And how that in itself can impact on the behaviour that we're being shown or getting presented to us. So, understanding some food qualities are really poor and not quite high up there in the standards of eating. I seem to have really picked like the worst place. Give me 1 minute. I'll just try and not blind myself. That's it. It's funny enough that I'm doing a Severus Snape impression this morning without actually blinding myself as well. Thank you. So obviously we need to consider diet, and it's really, some food quality is really not high up there, and that in itself can cause all sorts of hyperactivity, or you can also get dogs that are overweight but are actually having malnutrition issues. So just supporting the digestive system for that dog is really going to enrich the environment for that dog itself. And there's dogs that I refer out to specialists for testing regarding allergies or food intolerances, whose behaviour's improved enough at home that they don't actually decide they want any formal training. And that's fine. At least, you know, we've supported that entire family to have, you know, an enriched environment and relationship. So I'm not going to, again, teach people to suck eggs. Most trainers are aware that adjusting diet to support health, which then impacts on behaviour and training potential, is a thing, and there's already some really beautiful books about it. One was written by Dr. Conor Brady called Feeding Dogs, and the other one is Dr. Jean Dodd's Canine Nutrigenomics. If you want to go and have a look at it, that's their speciality, not mine. Hi. Moving forward, let's say we've taken all of our usual information gathering and our observations, or we've had owners film and send us videos of events at home. The vet check's been recent or has already been undertaken, and everything's fine. And then we end up realising that we've just got a dog that is showing a specific behaviour, and that specific behaviour is actually totally species appropriate. It's just that, for example, it challenges the family or the particular relationship with one member of that family. And again, for us, that can be totally species appropriate. For the family, it's really challenging. So I'll use resource holding as an example. So if we have a dog that has decided to assert resource holding potential of certain things in the house, I'll make it a really simple one because I did have a really simple one very recently. I'll incorporate opportunities in my training plan to manage the behaviour so it limits the opportunity to rehearse it. We will set up a behavioural plan on training out the behaviour, so we're going to try and stop the dog feeling the need to resource hold. But we will also incorporate an enrichment plan which runs alongside or part of the training and behaviour plan. And I do really structure this mostly for the human side of it, because people can forget that dogs are also sentient, emotional, thinking beings, and they just focus on the problem because we want to fix it. And sometimes it's not just a case of fixing it that way. So I like to make sure that as part of the daily activities for a dog, we have opportunities to provide enrichment in the morning and the afternoon. It can be something really small, but it can be something that gives the dog to learn a concept around maybe sharing or leaving something alone that is nothing to do with the actual training or the management. So we like to do it here, so we do it in the centre here. I can show you that it's set up. I'm going to be putting some of my dogs in at the end just to show you a few bits and things that we've done or that we do. We haven't got any clients in because we're not allowed to work inside. So when I'm asked to observe and create training plans for shelter dogs, I look at what environmental triggers that dog is facing. So I find that that's the same thing when I'm looking at resource holding, or if I'm working with a dog that has started to feel that they need to actively remove things that they find threatening to themselves. It's often the case that these dogs have started to lack they've started to lack opportunities to express themselves. Sorry, I completely went zoned out then. They lose the opportunity to express themselves, or they lose relationship with their human. And then they become more and more distressed or anxious rather than less distressed or anxious. And so the enrichment gives an opportunity for the dog and the human to still maintain some kind of positive relationship and interaction with each other. I've often found as well that when I'm looking at environmental triggers for dogs in shelters or dogs in situations at home where they've started to be created a lot because, you know, owners aren't coping with the behaviours, the enrichment plans can actually start to neutralise the stressors, as well as working towards highlighting the issues that we're training and making them seem less negative for both the owner and the dog. So if we go back to the resource guarder, we'd run a behaviour modification plan on their specific issue. So this really easy case, we just did, the bowl with a single food drop and walk away. You keep everything at sub-threshold. It was really, really quite easy. We could eventually just throw food away and let the dog kind of see us go near the bowl to drop more in. So as the dog approached, he wasn't guarding anymore. It was quite a simple, clear-cut case once we started to do it. But we started playing the kind of food drop games as a game outside, away from a bowl. So the bowl wasn't actually part of the process. We started using just licky mats or things that could be quickly and easily eaten but thrown away from an owner, and then the dog, when it come away and got a better treat at the owner, it kind of helped to move things around a little bit. We played 101 games with a box, just to increase flexibility of thinking and increase behavioural repertoire. We had high to low value toys and foods because we also make our human end of the deal aware of hierarchy of resources and hierarchy of foods and hierarchy of distractions. So if we're trying to work with a dog that's really not able to focus on the people when they're at a walk, it's lunging and pulling, we might play disengagement games away from training a loose lead walk. So we'll teach the loose lead walk skills, but we'll also kind of really throw that up as playing disengagement games separately. We will play, instead of micromanaging, we'll just manage the entire situation. So it's part of the functional plan. So we'll play games that make turn taking a really great idea, as well as teaching a general leave it cue for a resource guarder or a drop it cue, and we'll play that separately. So a training timetable at It's a Dog's Life tends to look like an ABC functional analysis that incorporates management strategies, daily enrichment activities and timetables, including a hierarchy of preferences, distractions and self-selection platters, the training plan itself, and the training plan has an environmental tick list and session timetable, as well as including review dates. I think if you make it a really simple process, it's also enriching for the human because they kind of get it, what they've got to stick to, and it's just really, really simple. When I first started trying to put it together, I seemed to make it really complicated for myself, and I realised that was making it really complicated also for the people I was trying to support, which meant I wasn't supporting the dogs as well as I could have done or should have done. So I really fine-tuned it and streamlined it down to its most simplest form. So it is only literally a series of subsections, and daily enrichment activities are part of that. So I'm going to pull up and just show you on my phone an example of one of our enrichment plans. Just because I can't show it you as a slide, I'm just going to turn my phone around. I'm really sorry. I think it's the Wi-Fi here. We've not had it really good. Can you see it, or do I need to go like a little bit more shady? Wait a minute. Can you see it? Can somebody let me know if that's clear enough to read? Sorry. It's because I'll turn my camera around. Hang on. Is that better? Is it all right now? Oh, hello, Elaine. Can you see it better now? I'm just going to try and move it around so that we're not getting too much sun. I will pop a screenshot of it in after, and if anybody's interested in having a look at how to incorporate an enrichment plan into the training plans, I am quite happy to send a template and just put in a little list of activities together that kind of help with different issues that might be not necessarily responding so easy to a lack of choice. Because for us, we really do highlight choice as being the most primary motivating factor in behaviour modification. So we do offer lots of choice. If you let me know at the end, you can just drop me an inbox if you want, and I can quite happily forward a template. It's not a problem. I'd rather see that more dogs are actually getting access to. Yeah, copies will be available. I'm happy to make them. Let me just remove myself from the blazing sun again. I can't actually see. I seem to have positioned my table in I wanted lots of natural light, and then the natural light's just blinding me. Right, thank you. That's a bit better. I've still got some daylight and I'm not squinting and showing you the upsides of my nose. So the training plan for us, like I said, includes the timetable I've just shown you, and I tend to give families an opportunity to do a game in the morning and a game in the afternoon. I tell them just to make it a part of their day-to-day life. It doesn't have to be at 4 o'clock, this is what we do. In fact, it's preferable if not. But I think it helps people to remember and recognise that if you've got a dog at home and their behaviour is linked to boredom, and you've seen it's boredom rather than the dog it's actually having separation related anxiety, or the dog is not actually human aggressive, it's just really mouthy and has never learned to play a way that's maybe less teeth on, you can utilise enrichment activities to sort of rebuild the relationship from both the owner and the dog's point of view, because they will have started to be a spiral of micromanaging to prevent incidents from the human end of the deal, and they will also have been often an opportunity, a failure to address, I should say, the original inability to cope with a trigger or cue, or to bring arousal levels down for themselves. So the timetable could just simply be that we are planning opportunities for the dog to have calmness in a house that's really busy, and the dog's not actually getting any kind of mental rest or ability to just go, do you know what, this is crazy, I need to remove myself and have a bit of a sleep here. I find that often with new puppies in busy households. So we can do an enrichment timetable that says, you know, the dog plays calming games, so it gets something appropriate to chew, or something appropriate to explore and rest inside even, or a space separate from the rest of the house. That it allows the owners to recognise that dogs actually do enjoy time alone as well as time together, and how much sleep dogs actually require, or how much mental activity they require. A lot of people focus on physically tiring a dog. They don't actually think that, you know, the dogs could need more mental stimulation in order to feel fulfilled. So, you know, the enrichment is part of training and behaviour. Most people are already doing it, they're just not thinking of it as being enrichment. but obviously from our centre the definition of it is improving the quality of the environment both internally and externally. So in actual fact you are providing enrichment rather than just the activities to play really. So I've found using enrichment timetables also makes it really easier to plan games that can facilitate a dog just to make choices and develop confidence in their choices. And actually for some dogs, especially when they're sensitive or nervous, this can be a precursor to actually trying any of the training or undertaking any of the training. So I suppose some people would look at that and say, well, you're kind of counter-conditioning or you're desensitising. No, I'd rather just step completely away from any of those activities as a formal training, and just allow the dog to explore at their own pace. So for us, enrichment is about play work, and I used to be a play worker a very long time ago when I was 17. So I used to do play work with children, and I did play work with children that had complex needs and complex disabilities. I then went into work in social work with families and realised that often, again, it was the same sort of relationship breakdown and communication breakdown between parents and children and parents. And I think it's made it sort of easier to transfer some of that skills now working with families and their dogs. It's a language barrier. And play obviously provides opportunities to explore and resolve certain issues without the social pressure. And it gives the option to leave or stay as much as they'd want to. That's the idea of the template really. So one of my favourite quotes is, our thinking is enriched if we use the right words, and those that reflect essential realities, and these words that reflect our realities become impoverished if we select the wrong ones. However, words are not equivalent to physical reality. They are symbols that aid our understanding. I always have the lion in the zoo. Yeah, I think they do. I think sometimes you can explain to them that if you watch an animal that's performing stereotypical repetitive behaviours, that's obviously an indicator that they're stressed and they need more enjoyment in their life. And you can't really beat sort of playing and building a relationship with your dog, I don't think. That's like playing with your children. So if our words are not equivalent to a physical reality and they're only symbols that aid our understanding, how we frame a situation linguistically is going to decide how we approach that situation and how the people we're supporting approach that situation as well. So I like to just say that the enrichment-based learning focuses on emotional world of the dog, and that the games are able to sustain certain unconditioned behavioural tendencies. I may not say it to him like that, but what I'd say to them is we're trying to provide a simple value coding mechanism that provides self-referential salience and thereby allows our dogs to categorise world events. So play provides the environment in which our dogs can work through their emotions and can either sustain or adapt their behavioural repertoires without it being pressured. So this is why I run it alongside the normal training plans, that they can read, this is the progress and this is how we're going to review it and this is where we're going to go. And you can do all of those timetables, but you can sort of sneak in the addition of choice. Obviously, enrichment for me is always self-referential. So the dog will always sort of direct the pace. It might not always end the game, but we should be working towards allowing the dog to learn when we're saying we've had enough. The owner's saying, this event stopped, we're going to do something else. And a dog is given the opportunity to say, actually, this event stopped, I'd rather do something else. So I like to do it this way because obviously when we're looking at the emotional centre of the brain, the amygdala upregulates the hippocampus and allows the emotion during the experience to store and shape the memory of that experience, which is why I like to work alongside the training with positive emotional experiences between family members and the dogs. So I think knowing this allows us to condition the emotional responses to a stimuli, but make it sort of semi-automatic in the face of the new novelty or the new experience. So we can override some of that maybe fear-based behaviour. I think if we promote choice and give a sense of control to a dog, again as a primary reinforcer and as a decision-making species, it allows for emotional self-regulation. Now that I know doesn't always apply, and some dogs will naturally try and raise arousal because they've not actually found a method of lowering their own intrinsic arousal levels, or they've been over aroused for so long that I think they experience a little bit of burnout. Again, that's where your enrichment plan would focus on calming activities and teaching a dog to kind of manage its own emotions on the lower end of the arousal, but on the more happier quarter, if you like, as a quadrant. I tend to draw it for myself as a quadrant. So I have emotional balance and then arousal up and down. So when I'm looking at a dog as part of my functional behaviour plan, I also look at balance and arousal. So I look at whether the dog is experiencing a positive emotion in high or low arousal, or whether it's experiencing an unhappy emotion in low and high arousal, and then try and make the enrichment activities lean towards reaching homeostasis. I don't think you can do that instead of using medication if the case is severe enough, but I do think it can help alongside. I don't think it ever hurts anybody to have a little bit of cognitive behavioural therapy sometimes if they're finding it hard to cope. And I like to think enrichment kind of works through lots of thoughts and emotional processes at the dog's pace. So play supports learning in such a way that the experience alone can provide concrete concepts, and so this has been utilised by some sports trainers, Suzy-Anne Garrett, and concept trainers like Tom Mitchell at Absolute Dogs. And though it's not always been something that's been part of day-to-day dog training, I don't think it's been a bit slower to take off in generic companion animal training. It seems to have picked up more in zoos where they realised that with non-domestic animals they were just getting so bored because they weren't actually doing anything that met the emotional biological drives. So emotional flexibility for me is learned through a variety in experiences, and we try to support that in our enrichment plans by having a small checkbox at the end of each activity. So we try to facilitate opportunities to control the situation in a way that promotes feelings of safety in the face of novelty, or provide the opportunity to flee and escape in the face of something the dog feels unhappy with. And we give them control of the situation using start, stop or mands as conversation beginners, conversation ending, and the dog allowing us to continue by telling us we can continue, as well as us asking a dog to continue using a mands. I've found it's really helpful when we are working away from an actual stressor, if we can also teach a way or coach a way for the dog to tell us, right now this is the time we've finished, and you just stop. The dog doesn't have to carry on. It doesn't allow itself to build a strong negative response to the situation. And once the dog realises that you're going to actually listen to that, and that it can affect change in how it's learning, I think they seem to learn it quicker in my experience. I'm not going to say that that's like the be all and end all of desensitisation or counter condition. It's far from it, but I do think it can really be helpful to run alongside of it. So I also think if we structure it in a way that maybe is not too complex for families, we can help to prevent sensitisation occurring by mistake. So I'm sure all had cases where we're working with a dog and we think we've explained it really well, and they've maybe not quite understood it the way we believe. Even we've asked for feedback and they've told us and it sounds like they've got it, and then they're actually causing unnecessary sensitisation, and you go, oh, that's why. It's often with separation related behaviour, they desensitise the leaving rather than desensitise the leaving. It's not deliberate, and then obviously it can take you right back to having to try again. So I've found that obviously giving the dog a level of control where it says, no, I'm not quite ready to start this session today, I don't want to do this today, I could maybe try later, I think does actually help the dog buy in a little more, because they can buy out when they don't want to be involved. So I think we can help to speed up recovery from exposure to events as well that are traumatic if they've actually learned to take themselves away and rest. I can again provide things to people if they'd like to see them. I were expecting to be able to give you a presentation and slides. It just weren't going to work on live on anything but my phone for some reason. So I can't. So yeah, in order that families can provide a variety of opportunities and maximise emotional learning experiences for their dog, and then commit to an emotional memory, a suitable response. Now I think that's the other thing as well, is people don't always consider the emotional memory of the dog that they're working with. So for example, if a dog's had a traumatic experience in one place and you desensitise the dog to going into that place, or counter condition its response to going to that place, you might be able to sort of make the dog more happy to approach, but that doesn't mean that emotionally long term they're happy to stay. And often they could also be smell triggers that we're just not taking into account. So I like to kind of go over sort of smell imprints. When I look at an event, if I'm trying to work through a specific event with a dog, I like to look at everything that was potentially giving the dog information. So I had a dog that had a very traumatic domestic violence scenario, and actually has ended up that it's not just men that he's fearful of, because we've worked through the process of he's not actually scared of men anymore, and we've worked through the process, we're not actually scared of children anymore, and he's not really bothered by loud noises anymore, but actually he's incredibly bothered by the smell of certain aftershaves and the smell of adrenaline. So even if you aren't threatening, or you've been maybe to a gym, or if you've actually startled, he's barked at you and you startle, he'll then also startle because of your adrenaline response. And that's something that we are still working through with him to understand, that he's not always actually at threat. If there's an adrenaline smell, somebody could have gone to a gym, been running, been exercising, or like me, they could have a condition where your autonomic nervous system sometimes malfunctions and it releases a lot of adrenaline and cortisol in a way that actually, I'm not stressed, but I appear to be, or I am stressed, but I'm not. So that for that dog is really difficult. But it seems to be helping him understand that nothing bad's going to happen to him if I smell that way. So I'm hoping that we can reframe the memory of that experience for him. However, he's never happy to go to the location where the event occurred. There is experiments of mice that can smell a cat in a certain region and they stay away from the region and don't play there anymore. So play is counterintuitive to feeling scared. So that's why we use play as play work. Yeah, yeah, it would be such a big part of it, Gemma. I think so. It's been probably one of the hardest things I've actually had to learn, and I'm really grateful that, you know, this dog taught it to me, because obviously when you're new to coming into training, or if you've not experienced certain situations as a trainer, you might genuinely overlook certain things, like how big a part of helping a dog reframe their experience of the world can include actually using olfaction. And it should really be simple to us, shouldn't it? We should really automatically kind of go, oh, it might be something that they can smell. Yeah, it is, you're right. I think a massive part of the puzzle for grooming. Um, just the amount of sense that you would have there as well can be a micro trigger for, although this is going to be awful. It's why one of the things that we teach in our puppy group is to build a scent memory, and one of the, you know, one of my favourite things I ever learned was about actually giving breeders items of clothing, or we put scent pads in a jar and ask the breeder that's been next to all of us, including our dogs, so we've collected enough scent, and then put that in, let it all mix together, and pass it to a dog that's either coming into our care or a puppy before they eat the food or play or something. And it's actually something that I picked up and just sort of merged together from what I'd learned in Puppy Lab. So I could see why that would be really important, is when your dog came into the space, they'd learn that your space was associated with a calm, nurturing environment, or rather than we take a piece of cloth from home that reminds them that they can't actually find the place that this smell comes from. So yeah, I do think enrichment in itself, again, should be part of, even before you bring a dog into your home, and acclimatising the dog to your home and to your life. And doing that in a way that the dog's got some control and choice. It's a big thing for us. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? It's really beautiful to see how it eases that transition for a dog to move into a home where there's maybe a lot of members of family, and that family could be multiple species as well. So and to help them be confident in that transition. So yeah, we kind of try and do that. So I think the only situation I've found where enrichment activities cannot be used to support a dog is for separation-related behaviours, and the situations that they can be used in is in between. So if you're working on separation-related behaviour, you might work on the underlying anxiety and confidence and various other disengagement or independence, but not while you're actually working on like counter conditioning and desensitizing the dog's response to micro triggers that you're about to leave, because I think then the enrichment activity itself becomes a micro trigger for a negative experience, and then it stops by definition being an enrichment activity. So it's the only time that I kind of don't try and just make it part of what we're doing. It's totally separate in that case. And I don't like the idea that family members can accidentally poison activities, so I don't allow for that. We have the plan for working through separation related behaviour here, and we have activities here, and we try not to link the two. It's the only time I try really not to link the two. So I like to work towards happiness and fluency with happiness first and fluency with cues after. Canine happiness is much more important to me than the obedience. So I do like obedience, and I'm always impressed by a working relationship between a dog and its human. I also think that we can sometimes put too much pressure on the obedience side of things and overlook actually the basic foundations of being happy and the building blocks for being happy. So in enrichment-based coaching, we're aiming for our dog to acclimatise to the world we're in, to feel happy and to be fully immersed in experiencing it with all of its dog senses, obviously primarily olfactory for us, and we make a decision that is agreeable for our interactions to take place. And when I say we, I mean we and the dog. So between us, we make a decision. So like I said, we can engage the dog in telling us yes, no, carry on, don't carry on. Dogs do that already. It's just sometimes people find it really annoying. So you might have a dog that's pawing for attention or whining for attention. It's like once you're stroking it, you stop and it starts whining or pawing. That dog is just asking you to carry on its interaction. So they do it anyway, but we try to make it in a way that's agreeable to us and to them, that they can understand. So I like for a dog to be able to feel that we're going to take notice of their interactions, as well as expecting them to take notice of ours. And that's what I mean by make a decision that's agreeable for our interactions to take place. I always ask for consent before I touch an animal, if an animal takes no notice. I mean, I say an animal rather than just a dog, because I've done this with other species. I don't just do it, I've not just worked with dogs. So I'm not suggesting that we all just encourage a dog not to understand or have any willingness to listen to verbal or physical signals or cues. I'm just suggesting that you could make this a more two-way exchange. So if the dog says no, we do actually ask why. So if you put your hand out to say stroke the dog at a distance and the dog walks off, you have a look at why the dog wasn't interested in interacting. Maybe they just don't know you, they don't like you, you smell like something negative to them. It could be that they're all over you actually, and what the dog, you think the dog's being really affectionate, and actually the dog's just super highly aroused and just trying to control the interaction because they're scared you're going to interact with them whether they want to or not. And I still take that as a no, not really, or as an inappropriate kind of emotional response to the situation. So I'll still work into calming, but I might actually just take the pressure off and just ignore the dog and scatter things for it to do around me, so it sees me more as a human vending machine. I'm building up a positive association without them feeling like they've got to dive bomb me. So when we look at enrichment-based activity plans and training, I like to call it the Know Your Dog Toolkit, or building on ethograms. And so what I ask people to do is put their tables of preferences on a notepad. Now, people that come through our training protocol are given a table, and I have got a book that I'm just about to publish. I'm sending it to have a couple of forewords put in and a bit further proofreading, and I'm inserting pictures into it. So it should be ready hopefully in about 2 weeks. And the ethogram building kit is in there. So for us, I have a table of preference. So the table of preference number 1 is to know your dog's favourite ingredients for their meals. Now that's particularly relevant if you're a raw feeder. So I use self-selection platters and licky mats and give my dogs an opportunity to kind of take a sampler of everything. And sometimes, if I've done it the night before, by the time we come to morning's breakfast, they've changed their mind anyway. But I do try to ask them, would you like this in the morning? And I do suggest to owners, just take a little bit off a slice of everything frozen and let it defrost and see what the dog selects, and make that your main protein for that meal. Allergies should have already been sorted out. We know the dog's not allergic to what we're offering it, or intolerant to what we're offering them. So we kind of go, here you go, there's a sample, what would you like to eat? And just that small little adjustment gives an element of control into a dog's life that people just don't consider. We force feed diet. And it's the same, I think, with kibble. You can sometimes, just offer your dog something to go into the bowl of kibble. I'm not going to beat up kibble feeders just because I'm a raw feeder. So I would suggest that maybe do a series of bowls so the dog can select additional foods and choices and tastes and textures that they think could be really nice to add to that bowl of kibble for breakfast. I don't tell people to ditch a bowl. I think sometimes actually you can make the dog a little bit too hungry by not having a bowl. Maybe don't put all of your food allowance into the bowl. If you're working through resource guarding with a food bowl, obviously you might not provide a bowl, but it is specific to the dog in front of you. That's the purpose of what we're saying. So if you put together your table of preferences on a notepad, your dog's favourite ingredients or additions to their meal, so learn what they actually like to eat and make a note of it. I usually make it really simple, 1 to 7 for protein, so they can have a varied protein diet. If they've got to have a low protein, just limit it to the ones that you know they can have, but give them an option. And so that day then, if they select whichever one, we take that piece of food, that meat, and defrost that one, and that becomes the form, the basic foundation protein. And then we might have licky mats that have got a little bit of raw egg, a yogurt, some herbs, then a dog-friendly herbs, so the dog can select whichever bits that they want to do. I really like zoopharmacognosy, and as part of our enrichment centre we do offer activities. If you look on the wall, I have things everywhere, like the plant holders. I don't know if you saw them, I'll show you again. So we have plant holders. They're empty at the moment because obviously we're not actually opening them, and I've got too much space in them to just have the herbs available to mine. So I do put edible dog herbs in there and allow our dogs to come and get them. 1 minute. Hello, Lisa. Oh, my girl's just come in, and actually she's playing with the cardboard. You alright, D2? Hello, Gary. Oh, we found some in there as well. So we also have so yeah, we have the plants holders. The dogs can go and select different herbs as they'd like to add it to their food. We also have it for scent working. So if we're doing scent work games or we're using activities and I'm introducing that to somebody whose dog's maybe not been encouraged to use sniffing and their nose, we'll hide things around that are interesting. Make it really easy. I'll let the dog see me put it in, and I'll let the dog see me put things in that they find interesting from a licky pad. So I'll put licky pads around, allow the dog to go and explore the licky pads. Whatever they've shown interest in, I'll hide around the room and let the dog see me do that. So it can just encourage the idea of scenting and using your nose again. Which I think in itself becomes an activity, and then owners enjoy it, and then you can incorporate it into what they're doing a lot easier. So going back to my ethogram, I do a list of favourite treats and toys in rank order, and then favourite environmental rewards, which are obviously also known as distractions. So I might have a list of 1 to 5 preferred toys, a list of 1 to 5 preferred treats, a list of 1 to 7 preferred protein rank meals. So I can set up a diet plan it's automatically going to be much more enriching because it's automatically things the dog enjoys. When I'm going out then in the environment, if I know what an environmental stimulus is in rank order and I want to counteract. So I've got a dog that likes to lunge and pull at other dogs. That's a really important. I haven't, but I'm just as an example. Likes to lunge and pull at other dogs. Then her favourite game is a game of tug. I will take a tugger that I will just drop out of my sleeve as we are approaching another dog and get them to play with me, and I might then increase distance walking away, or I'll increase focus on me and go past that way, and so there's no it's seeing another dog becomes a cue for your favourite game happens. Again, that's still enrichment. We do it all the time, but it is enrichment. So teaching that to other people is actually what we do here. So teaching that to non-dog training people, families with dogs, is what we do really here with that. And we make it really simple, and make it simple to understand actually their own dog, and use that to build the relationship from the dog's point of view. So it's being led by the dog without the human realising that it's being led by the dog, I think, sometimes. So we tend to do a table of favourite ingredients for meals. We do as rank order of environmental rewards or distractions. And then these 3 steps will help you to just know your dog better, and will help you to support either your dog or, as a trainer, the dog you're working with and their human, by overhauling their relationship. And I use this method to help both the dog and the human learn the new rules of the game. I also have a bit of a game and a mantra for introducing clickers, because obviously I think clickers are a great way to start building the communication, especially in the early days when maybe people are going sit, 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 or just, they're repeating their own little mantras. I create one for them to teach them how to use a clicker. So we have the clicker dance, or the click training dance, or mantra if you like. I do it with children as well, usually in families, so that they can also work with their dog and rebuild their relationship. So we have it goes click, treat, click, treat, click, treat, click, treat, and you might just change the variation a bit later on, but I tend to do it, ask people to do it around 10 times, because obviously that helps to load the clicker for the dog, but it helps to load the clicker for the person, and it gives the idea that you're always meant to reinforce a click with a treat to themselves. And then once they've got it, and I've got people do it, we can all do a little jiggle of joy. Because the human's learning that a treat comes from the click, and the dog's learning that the treat comes from the click. If it's like my Dober dog, who's upstairs at the moment, he now tries to click himself with the clicker in your hand. Hello, DT, all right? He tries to reward himself with the clicker because he loves the clicker so much. So if he sees a clicker, he'll come and do a nose target on the clicker, and then expect me to reward him, which I do just because I think it's really funny. So I think that's about my time. Yeah, click and treat with Tuna with Mike. He's 17 and he wouldn't allow you to groom him anymore. He's got where he doesn't like it. So we've been click and treat dancing with washed tuna or mackerel fillets, and then just trying to touch him with a brush, and then click dancing. So I'm sure he thinks I'm an absolute arse, but it don't matter. I love him. We've been together 17 years. So I do hope, because I think my time's coming up to an end, that this has been a really informative journey, and that I may have given you some helpful reference points, or how to apply cooperative choice-led and gamified life skills for you, your dogs, or dogs that you're working with. If you want copies of toolkits, I can send it to you later, so you can either message me directly, or message me at It's a Dog's Life, or I'll try and put it into the comments later on when I've got time. It's been really lovely to be asked to be a guest speaker. It's been I'll be watching the rest of you when you do yours as well, and it's been a new experience for me. It's probably enriched my confidence. Thank you for listening, and I hope it's been helpful. Take care, bye. Thank you, bye.